And we're back on air, Olga show for you, from you to you every Saturday night. And we continue our program with Keith Blakey. How are you today, sir?
Very well, thank you. Enjoy being here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. I know you are only for a few weeks in California, and most of the time you spent where?
Yeah, the majority of my time, I have two homes. One is here in Northern California, and the second one is in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Wow, that's far away, and isn't it like a little far away?
That's an interesting combination of house location. Northern California, Kabul.
Well, it turns out Kabul is exactly one half the way around the world.
Wow.
I know when I was a child, my mother used to say, Keith, if you're playing out in the backyard and you dig a hole deep enough, you'll go to China. Well, that's not true. You'll actually go to Afghanistan because it's precisely one half the way around the world. And when you come home, you can travel either way and get here the same.
Well, that's actually a pretty good initiative to dig a hole into the ground now.
I'll let you do that and report.
Well, so what brought you to Afghanistan? Far away.
Yeah, it's quite a thing. Of course, my purpose for being there is to work with the Afghan Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. But what actually attracted me there was a step first going to Afghanistan was working with the Scouts in Iraq. I have a very good friend from, I'm a Vietnam veteran, I have a very good friend from that era, which after getting out of the Navy, he went to work for the U.S. State Department and was eventually assigned to Baghdad. And through a connection, he reported back to me, he says, Keith, he's an Eagle Scout, by the way, and he reported back to me, he says, Keith, I believe I can restart scouting in Afghanistan. Would you help me out? And by helping out, he meant for me to interface with the media here in the United States, to raise money, raise the visibility of scouting in Afghanistan. And so he and I worked on that project for 8 years. When he started with 8 kids in downtown Baghdad. When the Americans left Iraq, we had 150,000 Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts in uniforms meeting weekly with trained leaders. Based on our successes there, by the way, my friend moved on to South Africa and is now working in the State Department in Haiti. But based on our successes there, I was a candidate to go to Afghanistan to develop their scout program in Afghanistan.
So let's read about you here. So Keith's father was a career Army officer. His childhood dream was to fly Navy, but didn't qualify because he wore glasses. Knowing he would be drafted, I guess it's Keith's father joined the Army? No, you joined the Army, just like your father.
Yeah, which being a son, I didn't want to do that. I tried to avoid doing like my father, but it ended up being the only alternative.
On the second to last day of Army training, a Navy officer appeared in his classroom, in your classroom, right? Mm-hmm. And announced, we need your specialty in an airborne platform. Who wants to learn to fly? And then you attended Navy Plane Captain School and flew 136 missions during the Vietnam War era.
So you got to fly.
I got to fly. I didn't. A plane captain is not a pilot. It's an engineer on board the plane. Mm-hmm. But I did get my dream of flying with the Navy, and there aren't many people that start in the Army that ended up with 138 cat shots off an aircraft carrier.
Wait, what's a cat shot?
A cat shot is a catapult shot launched off an aircraft carrier. It's really quite an exciting thing. Everybody should try to do it once, but 136 times is extreme.
So you are a veteran of 3 wars over the last 49 years, 2 in military uniform and 1 in scout uniform.
Yeah, my military career took me to Vietnam for 4 years, and then very few people realized that America flew in favor for the Israelis during the 6-day Middle East War. So those are my career military wars. And then my experience in Iraq and my experience in Afghanistan wearing a scout uniform, but those are still war situations. I mean, it's tragic wars happening there right now in Afghanistan and starting to restart in places like Iraq.
How would you say that scouting is different in war zones like Afghanistan and Iraq?
Yeah, well, certainly it turns out that scouting is a world organization. There's more countries that have scouting than countries that are members of the United Nations.
Wow.
I think last time I checked, there's 161 countries. But, and every one of them is slightly different. I mean, I've got a wonderful friend that's working with scouts in the Fiji, and she sends me these pictures of these beautiful things on the beach. And so every country is different as far as the atmosphere of scouting, but the mission of scouting and the goals of scouting and the laws of scouting are all the same. Of course, in a war zone, we've got some unique situations, and particularly in one like Afghanistan, where many times the women are repressed. 47% of our scouts in Afghanistan are female, and so it's totally a co-ed program. Because of that, for their own safety's sake, we can't expose them to situations that could actually endanger them as far as the war goes, or people's misunderstanding about the rights of women. 100% of our scouts are orphans, and so the majority of our scout activities happens inside of their orphanage, which is relatively safe. We do go out once a month. Every scout in the country goes out once a month and does some kind of a community project, just like they would here in America or any other country, as far as interacting with the population, maybe cleaning things up, maybe helping with health information, maybe communicating something relative to new opportunities or job opportunities or something like that. So the downside is we've got to be very careful about the safety of the children. The upside is they all get to experience scouting just like they would anywhere else in the world.
Wow, that's really cool. It just kind of brings a kind of more, I think, a sense of normalcy to the war zone to have something like scouting there.
Well, if you take it, we certainly know it's not the case, but every youth in Afghanistan is exposed to public education. And certainly there's better schools and worse schools, but they're all exposed to it. But the really only afternoons program available for youth in the entire country is scouting. And so that's a real differentiator for the leaders of tomorrow. That's where they're truly learning things like public speaking, honesty, trustworthy, being helpful, and so on. So we really think the majority of the future leaders in Afghanistan actually going to have some scouting experience, which is just great. And so me personally, I feel not only am I impacting the life of a child or impacting the life of an orphanage, but actually could be impacting the future of Afghanistan.
Wow, that's definitely very cool.
Well, it's extremely rewarding, I got to tell you. So.
Yeah, considering that you hold a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and executive master's in business administration, you have been in global sales and marketing executive for several Silicon Valley companies, including Fairchild and Hewlett-Packard, and you were marketing VP of one of the fastest growing internet companies in People's Republic of China, and you could continue making millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're affecting millions of children's lives and perhaps millions of people before, during, and after. So why is that?
Certainly, I was lucky not only for Fairchild and Hewlett-Packard, which are names that everybody recognizes, but to have worked for a couple of the right startup companies at the right time, which allowed me to retire relatively early. But even in my career in high tech and in Silicon Valley, I always gravitated to jobs that took me internationally. It would be international sales manager, international marketing manager, international something that would allow me to travel overseas. So that's always been a part of my life. I did have the opportunity to be part of a startup in China, which is a totally different story. It turns out it was the very first wholly owned American company allowed to work in China. Normally 51% has got to be owned by a Chinese company, and we were hugely successful. So that's just, a bit, whether it's business, whether it's interacting with youth, whatever it may be, the international part has always been part of my life.
You spent 21 years volunteering at the Menlo Park Veterans Hospital Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Clinic.
Yeah. I mean, being a veteran, you'll never stop never stop caring about veterans. And I think everybody realizes that maybe some of our veterans returning from Vietnam may have not gotten the welcome that they could have today. And so I live near the Menlo Park Clinic. I'd heard about the situation there, the struggles of some of our veterans which are coming back and confronting PTSD. And so as a volunteer, we would go there the first Sunday of every month, which I think is tomorrow. I'll be back there again. And we just sit and work with the veterans, try to get them to open up a little bit, try to maybe play some games with them or some board games or pool or watch TV or something like that. And just some interaction with them, which is helpful for us and helpful for them. And I've been doing that for 21 years.
Would you say like the type of helps that veterans get back after war has kind of improved over the last few years, or do you think it's still has a lot of issues?
I think the help given to veterans has improved significantly, not only from a medical point of view where the care is a lot better, and certainly veterans that would have died in Vietnam are living as a result of the care they're getting in the modern times, but also the interaction and the understanding of the needs of veterans. I mean, sadly, there's twice as many veterans dying every single month as a result of suicide than are happening in combat, and so it's still a very stressful situation. And I think we've got the doctors are dealing with that, and the Veterans Administration is dealing with it on all levels. Yeah, I think we can be very proud not only of our troops, but we can be very proud of the care they're getting from the Veterans Administration.
So you're also a member of American Legion, as I said, then MVets, VFW, and Vietnam Veterans of America, all of which have been financial supporters of the Band of the West.
Oh yeah.
So
all of those organizations that you mentioned, and I'm a life member of, are veteran support organizations. The American Legion, the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, VVA, Vietnam Veterans of America, AMVETS, American Veterans, have all been supporters of certainly our vets, but also of our youth. And one of the programs that we developed here in Northern California was a band which financially and physically these organizations have supported. So there's a common bond and an interaction between the youth of the Bay Area and the veterans of the Bay Area.
So, in addition to your combat experience, you helping rebuild war-torn countries through their Girl and Boy Scouts programs for 10 years. And you just spent 13 months of living and working in Afghanistan as an advisor to the Afghan Girl and Boy Scout program. And looks like in 2014 you already 62nd year in scouting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Scouting has been a part of my life, all of my life, sometimes more so, other times less so. As a youth, I enjoyed scouting. It was a fun thing. I'd always look forward to it. And then when my own children got of scout age, I got re-involved with scouting. And actually, when they aged out and moved on, I've stayed with it as a leader, as a member of the board of directors, and at the council and district levels. So scouting has always been, and it's been a part of my life for, like as you say there, for 62 years. So it's hard to get away from.
So you assisted with the Iraqi Scout program, which grew from 8 Scouts in 2004 to 150,000 Girl and Boy Scouts in 2010. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, it's certainly to be very proud of, but nobody does those kinds of things by themselves. I played a very small part in a very big job, and credit goes to hundreds and probably thousands of other people that were involved in the program. And the same is happening in Afghanistan. Though I was the only Westerner involved in the program, our goal is to make it an Afghan-run program. There are dozens and hundreds. It turns out, just talking specifically about Afghanistan, scouting started in Afghanistan 82 years ago and grew actually to be 36,000 scouts. And it was a very popular program. People joined it like they do in every other country. And then sadly, when the war situation started, scouting disbanded. And so there has been a period of 30 years, even though it was so successful and had grown to such size, for the last 30 years there really was no scout program. And so parents of children don't know about the program. It's interesting, I can go to all of these countries and say the word scouting, and somebody has a vision in their mind. Not so in Afghanistan, and so we're out there recreating, retelling, explaining to people. But it's interesting, it's actually pretty easy. When you go into a family and tell them about scouting and trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, those are all Muslim values and home values, and so they very quickly adapt scouting into their life, and then want their children to be part of it. Scouting in there is a little bit different, and here in places like America and other countries where scouting has been around continuously for so many years, our adult leaders typically are youth scouts that grow up, have a passion for scouting, and now want to continue to be involved like I was, and we send them to leadership school. Because there was no scouting in Afghanistan for 30 years, we don't have those people. We don't have adults that experience scouting and now to train. So just the opposite. Now we go out and identify leaders, typically social workers, school teachers, things like that. Identify leaders, and we teach them about scouting, the traditions of scouting, the background of scouting, and so on like that. So we create our leaders we create our scout leaders differently than we do in America and other scouting countries.
So, in the end of our program, I always ask, what would you like to wish our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, well, certainly. Oh, wow, that's an easy question and a hard question. I certainly would like everybody to, support not only the scouting program in their own neighborhood, also be aware of maybe if there's some way they could reach out to the people in Afghanistan that need our help so badly. They've been in war now for 30 years. They're struggling, they're suffering, but they have the same ambitions that we have in America, and anything we can do to help them develop their own country, whether it's prayers, whether it's passion, whether it's money, whether it's reaching out with some other way, I think that would really be nice, really be nice.
And that's with our other guest, or our guest who came all the way from Afghanistan and visited California, like he said, second home here, Keith Blakey. And I know that you have website blakey.net, BLACKEY.net, like blackey.net.
Yeah. Actually, I'd like to direct people to Afghan Scouts. I mean, that's a real purpose in my mission. So if you go almost anywhere, afghanscouts.org, Facebook, Afghan Scouts, Twitter, Afghan Scouts, and I think that there you'll get a chance to see our program in action. You'll get a chance to see our children. You'll get a chance to see pictures. And you'll see ways to communicate and reach out to us and for us to also respond to you.
Thank you, Keith, coming here. And yes, if you would like to learn some Russian language, please stay with us. We have other guests to talk about. We kind of